out of the forest.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. I hope that this works. I'm going to try to record this episode a little bit differently. Um, so we will see. This is an experiment. I'm trying to basically, if I don't mute myself like I did over the last my last episode, we are in Mercury in retrograde, and you may say that's all woo-woo, but trust me, it is very real, at least in my life. I keep having a lot of technical issues and communication issues, etc. So we will see how this works. Yeah, good morning. I hope everyone's 2023 is doing well. And I have made some changes with the format of my channel. Not major ones. It's kind of an evolution. Like I've stated before, I started Out of the Forest a few years ago, actually, because I wanted to talk about issues, personal things with regards to mental health, well-being, etc. And that is still my primary focus. However, I feel that, and not to sound, well, yeah, okay, to sound. Um, I feel called to kind of step it up a bit and do better. And I'm trying to post more. And in order to do that, I have to kind of keep things as simple as possible because I know from listening to other podcast content providers that it is very time consuming to do a lot of fancy editing, etc. So I have a full-time job, actually two, not two full-time jobs, but I have a full-time job and I'm trying to get a second job, etc., to, make ends meet. So I need to keep things as simple as possible in order to keep content flowing. And I know that some would say, well, what are you talking about that's so important that anybody would really want to listen to you? And fair point. I might not be a in-depth researcher pulling out, doing a lot of stuff. I am mostly a blogger, podcaster, talking about just things of the day. But my focus, and apologies for coughing, um, my focus primarily has been a call to quote unquote arms to start encouraging conversation. I think that my paradigm is that I believe in my heart that we need to have more conversations. We need to really practice the art of conversations. We need to start talking about and being able to listen better. I struggle a lot of the times, um, and I see it is really frustrating how fractured social media has become. It's become really, people are, I think, getting burned out on social media to the point where they just shut things down. We always talk about taking social media breaks, and just a lot of stuff is a lot of really intensive information that we need to take breaks from. I hear that. I know that it is really challenging for folks to listen to an hour-long podcast or video about really deep, intense subject matter. And I respect that folks need to take breaks and they really just kind of want to be entertained, or maybe they're taking long internet breaks in general and going out and living life, and more power to you. I agree. I think that We do need to do that. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our minds. We need to do self care. And that is really a critical piece. But that being said, there's a time when we need to come back and we need to put our big adult panties on and start having these conversations again. And how we balance that out throughout the year or throughout our lives, we have to make note for that. But I know that there's a huge swathe of the population of humanity that never will address anything. They will always escape into fantasy, always escape into trivialities and into distractions. That's where they want to live. They will never probably choose to go out and actually address and really look at stuff. They're so captured. And it is really frustrating. Um, it is really, really frustrating. So, yeah, I really believe that uh, we need to have uh, conversations, that we have to come back after our play is done and have serious conversations. And after the post pandemic, post Trump era, I feel like a lot of damage has been done to society and how we have conversations with one another. We don't do that. It doesn't feel like that for me. And maybe that is perhaps because maybe that is perhaps because I myself am very isolated. I will put that out there. And I've seen this trend on social media since the pandemic where people's mental health has gotten so damaged that they have turned inward to being, because they're so disgusted with society, that they're turning inward and they are self-isolating. That's not true for everyone, obviously, but I do see a lot of people who are embracing their introvertedness to a degree that I'm very concerned about. And I'll say this because I've always kind of wondered where I lay on that spectrum. I am certainly not an extrovert. I am not an extrovert. I don't like big raucous. I'm not the kind of person who's like network, likes to talk, likes to go out. Just I don't, basically when you look at introvertedness and extrovertedness, it's basically how people get their energy from being around other people. And extroverts get their energy and they are motivated and they're energized by interactions and activities. Whereas people on the other side of the scale, the introverts, are very, they don't. They get that they like to be in solitude. They do things in a very solitary way. They get very drained by extroverted activities like parties and events and all that other, that drains them. So that's basically the scale. So you've got people that are fueled by uh, people and events and they love that, and then there's people who get drained by that, and then there's people on the spectrum like there is with everything, and I'm somewhere on the spectrum. And I have been so far on the introverted side of things, and it's not by choice. I live in a very rural area, and I don't, a lot of my friends have moved away and I've lost contact with them. I've never really had a big social circle. I've had moments in my life where I have. When I was in college, I met people, I had community. I've had various communities and various points in my life that have been full of activities and people and connectedness. And then I would go and I would lose all of that. And I'm in one of those places again in my life. And especially since the pandemic, I really feel it very keenly. And I've been very isolated from people because a lot of people that I've known have moved away, far away. So I don't get to meet with them at all. I don't have any opportunity because they're in a different country, or the friends that I have are living in different countries or in different states. And so there's no way that I can really connect with them. And trying to find, and then during the pandemic, I've lost a lot of friends or people that I thought were friends. Possibly that could have been myself, self-isolating, struggles with my own mental health, which I'm speaking to anybody who's dealing with this. And it troubles me, and it really makes me very anxious and sad, because it's like, how are we balancing our mental health with the real world issues? How can we find where we're supposed to be, and what's a really good balance and fit for us? Because I think that it is really important. I don't think that it's really healthy to say, "Hey, I'm feeling really drained. I need to go turn inward," and then you stay there. I don't think that's healthy. And I don't think that society does a really great job, because it's either you are in this raucous kind of social environment or you're in this very isolated environment. And this is just my experience. I have been so isolated, I really don't know what the norm is anymore for anybody. I always find myself saying, "Oh, well, I'm sure everyone's just really busy," or that, "Oh, they're probably just going through their own troubles, and they might be having a lot of fun and traveling and everything, and I don't talk to them because they don't reach out to me, and they why should they?" Um, and I have a tendency to really hustle to connect with people, to the point that it may appear kind of desperate a little bit, which I don't like. Um, I was told by a therapist, that my therapist that I had just recently passed. She told me something, because I was struggling with a lot of my connections with people, and I really always had issues around birthdays. And she's like, "Well, why don't you call up people and set an event instead of waiting around for people to do things for you?" Which is a good point. Why should I expect anyone to do anything for me? But I found that that's always a really problematic thing. And then it involves our ego, and how we struggle with our identity and our ego and our self-esteem and our healthy sense of self, and how we are perceived in the world. You have on one end, you've got the narcissist that is like, "Oh, the world gravitates around me." They're very comfortable with being out there and believe that the world revolves around them. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum that have such a crippling sense of self-esteem, and the self-worth is just dismal. And I've usually been on that end. I mean, that's where my mental health issues have come from. And I've spent my entire life to really work on that. And it hasn't been until recently that I've started to really stand up for myself and be a good ally. And I think that one of the reasons why I talk about some of the more political, social issues, is because I really believe that, I mean, okay, so one of the big lessons that I'm trying to communicate, and this is where I'm going to take my shift, is really trying to help people to understand what these forces are that manipulate our mental health, and take advantage of us, and how we can understand that the world around us at times really can be working against us. That sounds very conspiratorial, I know, but it's true. Having a healthy balance of understanding what is within us and understanding ourselves versus what is understanding the forces that are working against us. Um, I don't watch mainstream news pretty much anymore. I read it a little bit because I just kind of want to have an understanding of kind of what's out there. Because there's times when I don't even watch that and I'm really out of touch. It's like I'm going, what's going on? Like the recent GOP debacle in Congress, I've I don't watch mainstream news, so I really wasn't paying attention to it. And I really didn't know really what was going on unless people on TikTok were posting it. That's where I was getting any kind of my news about the situation. And I was just like, okay. And maybe I should read a little bit more about what's going on. Not that it really matters because it's all BS, but just kind of understanding kind of what having a situational awareness about, well, what's going on? Oh, there's another war. Oh, that kind of stuff. And it's balance, I mean, it's not good. It's always, I really, really encourage folks to take a media break, honestly, to really understand how they consume media. I definitely agree with that. Um, and having more kind of a sophistication. I mean, I've struggled a few years ago, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks. I listened to like maybe 30 audiobooks maybe in a year, which is incredible for me. Since that time, I didn't read anything really. The pandemic really kind of tripped me up in terms of being able to even read a book. My concentration and my brain fog got so bad that I can't concentrate. So I'm very envious for people who can really bury themselves back into books again because I really miss that. I did binge watch Lord of the Rings over the holidays though, which I was like, I am going to go do this. I have the extended version of Lord of the Rings. Um, it's like an 8-hour marathon basically of Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. So yeah, it's always good to take a break, entertain yourself, do that. We need to. We need to do that. We need to basically do that. But it's also really good to get back and come back with a fresh start and find ways that we can really work on things because I know that it gets really overwhelming and I am in that space right now. I'm actually dealing with some depression and anxiety over just the world in 2023 so far. There's a lot of, and I know a lot of people are suffering right now. I know that it's not just me, that it is hard for everybody. Well, not everybody, some people. And I pick myself up again and I have conversations again. And I really I feel like this is really tugging at me hard to continue despite low listenership. I don't have an audience. I don't have anything really. I don't get people. My Facebook, I know a lot of people that haven't even been on Facebook. I bumped into a friend at the funeral and he's like, yeah, I haven't been on Facebook. And he actually admitted that, well, he's kind of getting back on Facebook, but he's under a complete anonymous, like total pseudonym because of the situation. And this is somebody that I really respect because they have always been able to have wide diversity of friendships and connections with people from all political spectrums, all social spectrums. He's really kind of I wouldn't say a maven per se, but he is someone that really we've had incredible conversations in the past about politics, society. He's really an interesting conversationalist. And because of that, he's really been able to have diverse conversations about things. with different kinds of people. I mean, Republican, conservative, everything. He can talk to pretty much everything, but he admitted that he is took a long break on Facebook and came back on, but he's under a different name because of presumably the drama of the past 6 years or so. And I'd lost touch. I really basically unfriended a lot of people just for my sake, but probably also for them. So it was kind of it was a self-imposed isolation that I've put myself in. And some of the people I do know probably have blocked me because of the things I've posted, or they just they don't relate or whatever. And so it's come to my attention that I really do need to find a new community, because I know that it is unhealthy for me to be so self-isolated. I actually find that I've been so self-isolated for too long that my mental health has not been it's been damaged by it. So, and I have had some conversations, some interactions where I get really, really excited about things. Doing this podcast, doing my social media, doing my YouTube channel, and this podcast has allowed me. I really get energized by it. Actually, I wish I had more time. That's why I'm trying to set it up to where it's easy for me to do these things, even if no one's listening. Um, because I need to start somewhere, and I need to make it easy so it doesn't become draining at the offset. Because if I make it too complicated, I won't continue it. I know myself, but at least I'm putting my voice out there. And again, I know that sounds really egotistical, and I know there's people that are like, well, why do you think that you have anything of value to say in the world? And I think that that's one of those messages that we get in our life that is so toxic. And there's so many toxic messages and propaganda and ways that we look at things that really mess with us. There's a lot of bullying, and whether it's done intentionally or just because that's the way people have learned to engage with the world, I don't know. But I truly believe that the only real solid remedy, apart from doing our own personal self work, whether that is getting a good therapist, reading some really, really good self help books, good ones, um, and doing our shadow work, really, really working on ourselves and understanding ourselves. That is a critical part. But the other part is also learning the art of conversation again. And I really believe this truly. I will be the first to admit that I am not a great listener. That's possibly partially derived because I have ADHD. Um, and it's a skill that I'm working on. And I believe, but I can't. It's funny because I think that the art of listening has to be within the context of conversation. And I feel like our time in our lives, we're so busy that we don't have valuable conversations. And there's sometimes when we have things that we want to say to the world, and we hold it in, and it just comes pouring out, and that we feel so pressed for time that we don't listen to other people because we think, oh, I've got to get this all out now, because if I don't, I'm not going to have time, or I'm not going to meet with this person again, or when am I going to have time to do this again? And I think that that's something, an artificial construct that we have created, that we're so busy. I don't have children, but I've got responsibilities. I've got a job. I've got cats I got to take care of. I've got relationship. I've got long drive commutes. Um, but I know other people have got children, parent problems, work, all this other kind of stuff. They may be really engaged in art or activities or sports or whatever. Okay. And that takes up a lot of our time. And so, but we, and I'm only speaking for myself because this is what I've experienced, and I may be very distorted in this. And this is why I'm trying to have a conversation about it is that we don't really have the art of conversation. Like I used to go to a bar when I was living in my one neighborhood, and I would go to the bar after work when it would open and go for quote unquote happy hour. And it was not your typical kind of bar that you would kind of think. It was the neighborhood bar, think of Cheers, think of, the coffee house. Okay. Um it was you had your regulars that were the neighborhood, the hoodie kind of people that would sit at the bar and they would always be there. And I would go and I would get a beer or a glass of wine, and I would sit at the table, and the bar was pretty much empty. They would used to play, they would have bands during the weekday. They had a stage in the back, etc. But the front, you had these tables that set up. It was really nice. For many years, they had a restaurant on both sides of them, and so you could order food from the restaurant next door, and they would bring it over. They would actually deliver it to you at the bar, and so it was really nice. You could sit there and you could read a book, and you could drink your wine, and your friends might pop in, and you might have a conversation, and that was kind of the energy, and I liked to do that, and some people go, "God, you're a barfly, because you're a barfly because you're always at the bar all the time." And it's like, no, that's not how it was. I mean, I didn't really wanna go home right after work and just kind of sit in my house all the time. I wanted to go out, and I used to do this in college too. I remember being in, um, college at Ohio University, and like on a Tuesday night, there was like $3 or $5 beer night, and you get a pitcher for like $5 or something like that. And I would get my pitcher of beer, and this would be like at 6 o'clock in the evening on a Tuesday. And I did this by myself. Okay. Get the pitcher of beer, go to a back booth and sit. Always had a book with me. I always carry books with me. I always have something to do, either my journal or book or whatever. And I would just sit there and I'd drink my beer. And then around 7, 8 o'clock, people would start trickling in. They'd sit down at the thing. And I met a lot of people that way. I met a lot of people that I ended up becoming really good friends with the community. I just did that, because I didn't really want to be stuck in my house and or apartment or wherever. And I had the luxury to be able to do this. I know I probably should have been doing more homework, but that's what I chose to do. And I don't regret it, but I remember like, "Oh, how can you, like, sit here by yourself?" It's really weird. It's like dancing too. Like, I would always go out and just start dancing. If I liked the song, I would go out dancing. I didn't care if there was no one on the dance floor, I would go out and dance. I mean, it's kind of odd being someone that I consider myself, kind of an introvert. I'm more of a kind of an ambivert, actually. And people would always says like, "How can—" I remember someone coming up to me though and saying, "Well, how can you go out to a bar by yourself and just sit here?" And I'm like, "'Cause I got a book." Like, like, and people would come, I'd put down the book, we'd have conversations, and we had great conversations. I mean, we'd have, like, really, really great conversations, and I met people, and I became part of a community and had developed friends, and, I'm not friends with them anymore, but that's how I did it. And the same goes for when I was living in this one neighborhood, and I would go in, and I would see people who lived in the neighborhood. They come in, they sit down with me, they get a beer, they chat. I mean, it just it was nice. It was really a nice, it was relaxing, it was quiet, Like, I know people go, "Oh, I would never go to a bar unless there was a band playing." I mean, and I had friends who were in bands, I would go see them, but you can't really have a conversation when there's loud music playing, right? So, it was always really kind of a nice, and yeah, you'd have the jukebox on and stuff like that, but you'd be able to have conversations with people. And, and I really miss that. And I don't have that. I haven't had that in years. And I think the pandemic really kind of put a kibosh on that. I know that some people are just stepping right back up into that, and it's very that they just are like that. And when the pandemic happened, I was trying to reach out and connect with people, and I'm always very gung ho and all that, which again, it's really weird, because I do get drained by social interactions, like I said, but I feel like I also gain energy from it. And so it's like I need to regroup. I can't stay out anymore until 3 o'clock in the morning, depending on what the circumstances. But usually I'm in bed. But it's a balance. I'm a balanced person, and I need that interaction. And I was kind of jealous of people during the pandemic, and they would be very um they were doing Zoom parties and Zoom like get-togethers and all that other kind of stuff. And I was trying to do that with friends, and no one was interested. And it was frustrating for me. And it was a struggle because I couldn't go out, I couldn't meet with anybody, not that I had any friends. I was very socially isolated before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and bam, it happened again. So we're kind of in this quasi state right now where people are still kind of socially isolating depending on how sick people are, but I really am still trying to connect with folks. And I really, again, believe that in order to have a healthy mindset, we do have to learn that balance again. I really believe that there was a book a few years ago entitled Bowling Alone, I believe it was called, and how a lot of the social activities that we used to have in our society, we don't have anymore. And again, this may not be true for some people. There's people that I know that are incredibly social. Like I just met somebody via my temporary work that I was doing, and she lived out in Colorado, and she was saying that it's like, "Oh, well, I'm meeting up with my besties to do hatchet throwing." And I'm like, "What?" Like they would go and they would and do hatchet throwing. And she was very socially outgoing and had a lot of friends, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm jealous." You know? I mean, it I was like, "Wow, I like to do that, but I don't have anybody anymore. I have to rebuild my entire social network." And I need to find people that understand what I'm talking about. Because I think there's a lot of people that have just kinda dropped me because I'm just a wacko or something. I don't know. Um, and I think people just have kind of gone, "Oh my god, whatever." But I pick myself up, and I get back on, and I try and reach out to people. And I'm just concerned for myself, for society, um, how we are interacting, and our lack of interaction or our interaction over the past thing. I don't know. I don't know what people are doing. I could be people are just like, "Oh, well, I don't know where you've been going, but we're all fine over here." Like they're all fine and everything's normal, and you're just isolated, and I realize I'm isolated. So I'm getting out there, but I really do believe that we need to have conversations. And it doesn't have to be all serious, political, weird, conspiracy oriented stuff. We just need to have good, healthy interactions. But I think that we also need to look at the world around us and some of the more dark, difficult topics, and be able to seriously be able to converse about them in a sincere way and in an intelligent, rational way. And for some reason, we're not able to do that. And that's where we've gotten into these battles, because we're viewing the other as the problem, that that person, like, I can't talk to this person anymore because they're completely, I can't deal with them anymore. They're just whack jobs. And I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that have really jumped the shark, or have gone completely just, because there are. And they need to rein it in and do self work. And I think that there's people on both sides. And this is the problem, is that this sides thing is the problem. Okay. In my previous podcast, I had said that I put a message out, you know, message to the left of which I am derived. I've always considered myself a liberal, and I have come from the left. I went to a very liberal school. I've always had very left-leaning uh, views about the world. But as I've evolved, I realize that this left-right dialectic is a distraction. And I'm struggling to try and communicate that with people, um, because, and shame on the right for people who sit there and go, oh, all these leftists are the problem, when they have their own wackadoodles on the right. So when we have conversations and we're meeting new people, we may not know what their political views, or maybe we're avoiding people because we perceive that they will not share our views, and uh, that they may be more conservative, and we just want to go, oh, I don't want to talk to them. Oh my God, And that's where we find ourselves after these 6 past years, and it troubles me. And we've got to get over this, and we have to find a way forward, because it's I think this is being imposed upon us, these illusions that, oh, I see that person and they are not me, and they don't believe like me. So therefore I don't want to talk to them. They're alt right, or they're a leftist, or they are a Trumpster, or they are, whatever they are. These labels that we have been brainwashed to view the other as someone we should avoid at all cost. And I'm not saying that there are not people on both sides, quote unquote, that don't have their issues. They do. And I really wish they would do their work and come back into the middle so we can actually have these conversations. My previous podcast, like I stated, I have a Facebook liberal prepping survival group that was I put up there because I realized that a lot of or a lot of prepping groups come from more of a right wing, conservative, militaristic, militia oriented place. But that prepping and homesteading shouldn't be a political thing. It should not be a political statement. That homesteading, it's really weird because, and I feel like there's certain activities that somehow have gotten politicized that shouldn't have been politicized. So, for instance, homesteading. Okay. If people, I mean, I know many liberals that, do permaculture, homesteading. They uh, are kind of the crunchy granola, let's make our tinctures and herbalism, and, eating vegetarianism or whatever, right? And they grow their own food, and I mean, and there's the whole thing. But then you've got the right wing version of that. And it's weird that something like that would have been so politicized. And I felt like, oh, this is something that, where it doesn't matter what your worldviews are, that this is just common sense. Like, we should be able to talk about this kind of stuff. And I feel like Somehow that got really politicized, and especially, like, I'm on a new TikTok channel, and I'm getting a lot of, like, tinctures, and herbalism feeds, a lot of channels, and they're talking about the medical establishment not wanting us to know about how to heal ourselves, right? And I feel over the last several years, because of the pandemic, that suddenly that has become politicized as well. And that somehow, if you are talking about building up your immunity or talking about alternative treatments or talking about anything, that you're somehow now a right winger. Why that happened? Well, we can only guess, right? We can only speculate why that happened. And that somehow a lot of my fellow liberals on the left suddenly somehow embraced mainstream medicine. And I am like, I'm shaking my head going, why are you embracing the mainstream medical industrial complex? I don't understand this. Like, it became, I distantly remember when my fellow people would be like, they would not be trusting of mainstream pharmaceutical companies because of the harm that they were doing to people, that they were pushing things out, they were only doing it for money, etc. But then once the pandemic came, suddenly we must embrace what they're selling us, and that we must follow and listen to them, and that all of the crazy alternative all the alternative health information was crazy, and ooh, you're not rational. And a lot of that stuff I think came unfortunately from the quote unquote skeptic community. And that, oh well, we need to do, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be silenced, but that people are like, oh well, you must get this, this is that you are the problem, and that if you talk about health or whatever, that you must now somehow be a crazy right winger Trump, whatever, and you're not, you're anti-science. Like, it became like, oh, if you're talking about alternative medicine, you're anti-science. All these labels they shift depending on what is one. Oh, here's a way we can divide people. Oh, and over here we can divide. And it makes no sense. I mean, it's not, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It can change. You know, people's political affiliations can flip-flop, or people's, like, suddenly you find you're on the other end of this political divide, and it's like, I realized that this is all constructed. This is all a construct, and that people are falling into these traps because they're so repelled by what they perceive as dangerous on the other side. And those are all constructs that are being imposed upon us by external media, political weird stuff, right? And that people fall into these traps. And I believe that a certain former president was put out there to once again create a strong repulsion and a division, and it worked very, very well. And terms like anti-science or anti-vaxxer or fake news, that kind of stuff, those became very, even like the Antifa and alt-right labels were pushed into the consciousness of the public and the masses, so they could be easily, oh, okay, I see this, you were talking about this and this, or doing this and this, therefore you are this, so I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm going to label you this, without understanding, without actually talking to the person and really having that nuanced conversation and really understanding what it is they're talking about. It just was like, oh, here, you're now alt-right. Oh, here, you're Antifa, you're a leftist. Blah. And that's where we're left. And that's where conversation has gone. And I'm like, shame on both sides. that for falling for this. And I understand that it is really easy to fall prey to this dialectic that continues to prevent us from conversing. The pandemic shut everything down. We were isolated. We don't do things again. And this is, I've had this view for even before the pandemic. I wanted, because I knew that it was we were in such a divisive place that I felt like we needed to start having groups somehow bringing people together. And I was like, let's bring them together over food because everyone loves food and actually have conversations again. And again, I feel like these need to be more normalized rather than just maybe doing them even like once a month, maybe doing them twice a month, where you're getting together, inviting people from a diverse range, and having a discussion about something and meeting with people. And it doesn't have to be formal. You can do more formal topics, but like a but primarily it's just getting together and having conversations. And there may be some rules and parameters to create a quote unquote safe space, which I say that very lightly, but in a way to be able to teach people how to have conversation again. Because I think that there's an art of conversation. It doesn't have to be highly regulated where you like put you know, pass around a talking stick or anything like that. Because I think that sometimes, while that's nice and that can be used in certain circumstances, I don't think that we need to be so formal. We just need to be able to look within ourselves and our own things that we need to be working on ourselves and how we're understanding. So, like I brought up about Mark Passio in his presentations, one of the first things that he really puts full front and center before he even starts talking about the topic is that our perceptions about information that we are hearing or being told or talking about, that we may have internal triggers, internal reactions to that information. And he always says, do not allow your emotions to shut your brain down essentially from listening to the information. Be open to it. And there was another really good called glitch in the matrix. At the end the guy was saying it's like when you are hearing information for the first time, or you're coming into a new conversation with somebody and you find yourself shutting down or getting triggered or getting angry or making assumptions. Look at that. Understand what's making you feel that way, and to kind of put those aside for a moment and listen to the person. And we need to stop being so acrimonious with one another. We need to be able to start listening to one another and to be able to not flounce off and go, I already know everything there is to know about what you're going to say. I'm making these assumptions. You sound like an alt writer. I'm leaving. Blah, 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 blah. And the same goes for the right to the left. Oh my God, you're a leftist. Oh my God. Blah, 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 blah. It's just, and we do this over and over and over again. We need to stop. We need to stop. And it's a skill that you need to train yourself in. It is something that you have to develop. It's not going to come overnight, and it has to come through your own personal work. Understanding how we think, understanding and identifying logical fallacies in our conversations, in the arguments that we make with each other, debates, understanding about propaganda, understanding about psychological operations, how advertising, marketing, how all of these, the media, the news, how all of these institutions call us to affect how we view the world and each other. And we need to stop and do this work. And we need to understand that if we are going to heal the problems that we have in our world, we need to start there. And I fear that that's it's a tall order. Even now I can hear a voice in my head that because I've heard this from people saying, "Well, you're making a large assumption about what you think we know." Like, that's so insulting. That's, like, you think that I don't know this stuff. And again, that's a trigger. It's like, I'm not trying to say you don't know this stuff. I'm just saying, I don't know if you know this stuff, but don't be so damn triggered by it. It's like, we need to listen. We need to like hear each other. And I make the mistakes too. I am not perfect. Hello, I am not perfect. I am not saying this from a place of, hi, I am a guru at this. I'm not. I have gotten caught up in the same kinds of triggers. I had the same visceral disgust reaction to Trump as any one of my liberals. I look at certain individuals and they make me sick and they make me frustrated and I get angry and I get upset and I raise my voice. I still go through that, but I identify it and I go, wow, let me look at this information again. And honestly, if you really do honestly care about solving the problems, it's not going to come through politics, people. It's not going to come through a conservative or liberal ideology. It's going to come from connecting and understanding what the actual truth is instead of being led astray into appeals to ridicule on the media, appeals to ridicule on the news, distortions, all this other kind of stuff. They are designed to put these ideas in our heads so that we don't talk to the other side because we're really not on one side or the other. That is an illusion. They push us to the other side. They push us to these extreme sides or into these groups that, ooh, wow, I can't trust you. And ooh, I can't trust you. And I can't. And we need to stop. We need to understand what overall is really going on and how conversation and thought is really being manipulated by the powers that be. And I know that sounds very conspiratorial, and again, that's another thing. It's like a web, you know? It's like if you say this, "Ooh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you believe in hoaxes. Oh, I remember there was a really great Bill Hicks, who was a great comedian. I wish he was still alive. Um, and he talked about marketing and basically how I should get the clip and post it, but it's his clip on marketing. And it's he was trying to I mean, because he would just break through this stuff going, "People, you are being manipulated," and like, "Oh, that's right," and it's like, "Oh, but you're this," and he's like, all the but people I know what it was. It was like he's like, "All you people in marketing and advertising, go kill yourselves." And you go, "Oh, we know, Bill. You're gonna make a joke." He's like, "No, seriously, kill yourselves. How do you live with yourselves, right?" And he's like, oh, yes, we see that this is blah 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 blah." And he was talking about how everybody always has an excuse or an answer to anything. They always have, "Oh, well, this is this. Oh, well, this is this. Oh, well, and it's this web, you know that you can't get out of because there's always going to be some answer. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Oh my god, that's crazy. Oh my god, blah 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 blah. And there's all these layers and you peel them back and there's someone else. I mean, it's like playing whack-a-mole. There's always going to be something that's going to make you question this, and there's always an excuse, and there's always this and that, and it's like it's crazy making. And it is. It's like we're stuck in a web, and we need to, like, get the hell out of the damn web, because that spider's coming down, and it's gonna wrap us up, and it's gonna eat us, you know? So that's why I do this podcast. Yes, it is still about mental health. It's still about issues of the day. It's about how to take care of ourselves, but it is really an important plea to not just the left, but everybody who may listen to this. If you're on the right and you view a leftist as the problem, or if you're on the left and you view the crazy right, we need to, like, stop and really start learning the information and the knowledge that we need to learn in order to be able to heal and solve the problems. Because we're not going to find it through our politics. We're not going to find it through our ideologies. We're not going to find it through our religions. We're not going to find it through just throwing more money at the problem, or believing that this person who's a billionaire is going to solve the problem, or this person who's this grassroots person's going. I mean, there's always going to be someone who's going to come up, and we're going to go, they're going to lead us out of these problems. Listen to this person, listen to that person. And wanted to say something just really quickly. I just was listening again to, and I talk about this guy Mark Passio, who's a researcher and a teacher. And I want to apologize because I've talked about him for years, because I really have found value in the work that he has presented, the information that he has gathered, which is not his information. It is just information that he has gathered and he has presented. And he was saying, he's like, I don't want anybody to follow me. I don't want to start a religion. That's not why I'm here. I'm not here to be liked. I'm not here because I want you to follow me. I don't want that. And he said that it made him cringe when he had sycophants that would go, "Oh, Mark, you're so great, blah, blah, blah." And I feel like I do that. And if he ever listens to this, I apologize. I just get excited about stuff because it is really good content, and it has been very transformative, and it has really encouraged me to. I mean, I do value him as a teacher, even though I've never met him, because I do value the information that he has provided, and I value the work and the effort that he has done. And it's encouraged me. And so for that, I am very valuable. Just like my therapist, I value the things that she taught me. That we have people that I want to honor and say, hey, kudos, thank you very much, because it's helped me be a better person. I've learned a lot of stuff. And so I just wanted to put that out there, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm just this weird cultist talking about this guy named Mark Passio. Um, or anybody else for that matter. I mean, there's a lot of other really wonderful researchers and presenters and stuff like that that have really put out incredible information. And I'm not putting out technical information. I'm not giving you anything new. I'm just trying to have a conversation, because that's what I'm feeling I'm called to do. And just recently, I did create a new TikTok channel, which I know people are like, "Oh, why TikTok? That's so and so, and you shouldn't be using that, and they collect your information." Everything collects your information, people. There's some really good presenters on there. That's why I'm still on there. I'm not. I understand, but that's another conversation for another day. Anyway, I created another channel. I realized, like, okay, well, how can I share this really great content that I'm listening into? Because sending somebody a link for a 2 to 8 hour presentation, they're not going to watch it. I know this. I've had this problem. So I've started to take little bits here and there, 1 to 2 minute clips, and posting them out like seeds. I'm casting like seeds out into the world, and hopefully this little bit will, like, oh, wow, that looks really interesting. I want to find out more. That's what I'm hoping. That's one of the things that I'm doing for 2023, that I'm hoping that I can sow these seeds out there. So, because that's something easy that I can do, within my the time that I have. And so I do hope that you listen to those. That's on my TikTok channel of the same name, Out of the Forest. It's Out of the Forest now. And I thank you very much for spending an hour with me. And I hope that what I have stated is valuable and that you continue to subscribe and share this information. And if you are interested in having more conversations, message me and let me know. Because that's my goal for 2023. I don't know how far I'll go. We all know how the years start. They start off with these good intentions, and then by like March, they're, you know, and things happen and everything. But that is my goal. So I thank you. I will try and get another one up. I will try and do these at least once a week, maybe more, depending on what I'm inspired by. But yeah, so thank you very much and have a good day.